Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Shanth Enjeti Art on this fine September 2nd. It is my birthday today, so I am 45 years old, and I feel every year of it. So I'm very excited and grateful for every single one of those years. So I wanted to do a stream this morning because I am committed to streaming. And today I'm going to be doing some more work on this page right here, talking about a bunch of different stuff, influences, things that inspire me, and thanks for joining me this morning. So let's see where we are right now. So I've done a considerable amount of work on this panel since the last time I streamed. This is the thing that I came up with for this panel the other day. This was not planned, but the cool thing about comics and the cool thing about making artwork is sometimes a solution will present itself if you keep the process open enough. I know where the story is going, I know what the basic ideas of it are, and I know how it ends, but how it manifests itself and how it visualizes is something that is a part of the creative process for me. Keeping that open and keeping it fun, keeping it light. And so, yeah, woke up this morning, my wife left me a note on my desk, which was great, and just kind of came back down here and started working and realized that if I don't stay in the habit of streaming, then I will, it'll get lost in the shuffle, and I know how important it is to make sure I'm touching base with all of you guys and make sure I'm talking about my work, getting the word out. Very important. One of the many things that I've learned from John and Ethan. So you can see what I'm doing here with the brush. Just kind of working in and giving that little extra bit of value so that things anchor. The thing about when you're doing your work that you have to remember is that if you want something to come forward, you're going to want to put in some more contrast and darker values in it. If you want something to recede, then you're not going to have as much contrast. So if you take a look at the snake right here, you can see that the patterning that's on it is somewhat similar, but where the patterning meets the area of the snake or the part of the snake that's further back, I'm not working in as contrasty as I am here. And that does the job of helping it to recede into what's a lighter background. So if your background is light and you paint something lighter, it will seem like it's going back in space. If it's dark and you paint something that's a little bit darker, it's going to seem like it's going back in space. So it's all relative to what, what the aesthetic is that you're doing. Now over here, I'm doing something that I really got from probably Image Comics, Todd McFarlane and all those guys, and even the Stephen Platt Moon Knight cover that I remember from years back, but it all kind of owes its origins to classic illustration and a little bit of Frazetta in there. And that is the, kind of torch or, firelight that's burning in the background. And so this is one of the things that I'm going to be working on as well today. So here is the torch right there. And I'm going to go in and just pull out a little bit more contrast from it. Actually, yeah, let's do that. And again, I tilt the paper in the direction to where it is perpendicular to my arm, which is to say I'm moving it like this with my arm. If I turn my arm the other direction, I'm not going to get as clean of a line. So it's a big deal to kind of make sure you're turning your paper when you're doing this work. And something that I'm able to do a lot easier when I've got the camera that's directly above me. I've been working with an easel and in my lap and using various techniques until I got this new desk setup that I have. It's not a new desk, but I got a new base for it that would allow me to work flat. And that has really helped me to show you and give you a better sense of how I actually work, which is, again, it's going to be a lot of rotating the paper and a lot of kind of moving my arm around. So let's see what else we have to do here. We've got that. And then something that also presented itself when I was working on this is you'll notice that I've got this light area that is a natural feature of the way that I've designed the water here. I'm sorry, the smoke here, not the water. I was just dipping my brush in water. Still getting used to walking and chewing gum here. But you can tell that I've got this kind of nice effect there where there's a line from when I did that wash. And so I saw that and I thought, well, okay, well, that's going to work really nicely as a, as a area where the light is coming out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with a slightly darker value into here. I might even just do a wash over top. I mean, remember, it's a good idea to let your colors move into one another. And it's nothing to be afraid of. It'll help it tie the image together a little bit better. And now I'm going to go in with a similar value on the other side right here. Also partially because I needed to reload my brush there. And I'm not going to worry about letting that kind of mix in a little bit. There we go. And we'll bring that down there. There we go. Now by doing that and making this darker, what it's going to allow for is for me to then go in and put a little bit more contrast. You can see me right now, I'm just kind of dropping color into this area that I've already got wet with the watercolor paint, even going in there a little bit. And what that's going to do is it's just going to give it a much more painterly and dynamic look. And I'm not worried about where it's going into the background as much because I've been doing this for long enough that I know what areas I have to worry about and what areas I don't. So what happens a lot of times when I'm working is I will hit a wall with my work and I'll have trouble painting and I'll think, oh gosh, I don't know where to go. I feel like I made a mistake. What do I do? And whenever that happens, I will take a big brush out with some paint and I will just nuke the entire area with paint. And it's kind of almost like you can't solve problems with little brushes sometimes. Sometimes you have to solve them with bigger brushes. So just by taking those two areas right there and washing them back darker, you can see that we start to have an effect of some fire and some smoke coming out of here. And that gives it this really great effect, this really great aesthetic. And that to me is kind of, uh-oh, just heard a siren. They're coming for me, folks. The part of it that I enjoy is we've actually got some police out front right now working traffic because we've had some street flooding today. So those guys are busy this morning, and I want to thank them for the work that they're doing because I know it's a lot to herd cats and redirect the flow of traffic when you've got a street that's washed up. We've got the remnants of Hurricane Ida, I think it is, up here, and it really dumped some water on us, and I think it washed out the streets by the high school. So we've got our local law enforcement out there making sure everybody gets to work safe and making sure people don't drive out into a puddle, which you just don't want to have happen. You don't want to be having to fish people out at this hour, although I have no doubt that they probably are dealing with that. So here we go. Put another wash in here, knock this back, and now we've got this effect that's starting to happen where you can feel that smoke. You can feel that fire coming off of there. And all I did in order to achieve that was just to make everything around it darker. That's how the context of this whole thing works. You know, it really is all about context. Something is light in context to something around it that is darker. And so that's a huge factor of what I'm doing whenever I'm doing this work, is making sure that I'm getting this, stuff together. So here we go. So here's some more washes. Oops, I'm off frame there. And we're going to knock that back just a little bit so it ties in. And again, if I have this snake right here, if I have this highlight and then that light right there, it's never going to work nearly as well. So I've got to make sure that when I'm doing all this stuff that I'm putting some washes together there. so that I can knock this back. And as I do that, it's going to tie the snake together into the rest of the piece, and it's not going to make it jump nearly as much as it would otherwise. So here we go. Put that wash in there, and then I'm going to mix in a little bit more dark. Grab a little bit. I'm going to put some black in there just to kind of gray it up a little bit. There we go. And I went over the figure a little bit right there, but that's nothing to worry about. Like I said, it's okay to have your colors tie together. In fact, it's better if they do. If they all mix in together a little bit. Because you can always pull out with gouache. A lot of people think of it like watercolor too much, and I know I'm using it a little bit like watercolor. But the difference is that I can work into this a lot more opaquely. And so that means I can take in a white paint or take out a white paint right there and put it into the piece and bring out some more highlights. And that's kind of important, because if you can bring out your highlights, then you don't have to worry as much about getting too dark. You can always bring the contrast back out. And so there you go. And you can kind of see how that starts to tie together a little bit more. Really can see the water reflecting in the camera right there, so you get a sense of like how much washing I'm doing here to make this thing, you know, come together and be stronger. And I think that that's one of the things that I really admire about Frank Frazetta. I really admire about a lot of the artists I follow. Travis Charest, whose work is a huge influence on just, it's tough to say because I really like Travis Charest's work and it inspires me. But if I thought about that I had to, it's just so intimidating. It's amazing. My brain doesn't work that way, but his use of edges is really fantastic. And so when I'm working, I've got certain artists in my mind. I mean, Frazetta is easily the biggest right now, and probably will be for some time. But it's Travis Charest was, I remember when I saw X-Men Wildcats when I was in college, a friend of mine showed it to me, and I just, actually, you know what, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was Brian Stelfreeze or somebody who showed it to me. I can't remember who it was, but or some of the guys down at Gaijin, I can't really remember, but I was just blown away by it. I just didn't even know that was possible. And of course there were those Wildstorm covers that he did, which were incredible. He did these this interconnecting, for those of you guys who don't know what the heck I'm talking about, he did these interconnecting comic book covers, various characters, and they were kind of single portraits, and when you put them together they made for this really great poster that they then released. And he was just experimenting with, you know, media at that point, and doing, you know, kind of, I guess, ink washes or acrylic washes. I'm not exactly sure what he was using at that point to tint the color down. And these were just so extraordinary and so visually inspiring. And of course it was fun, even though I wasn't reading all those books, I was trying to collect the covers, you know, as you do when great artists come along. So that is one of my big reference points when I'm working, is just thinking about the kind of immaculate reality that Travis Charest creates in his work. I know he's influenced a ton of artists. He's probably one of the most influential artists of his generation, and in a lot of ways he's kind of like Art Adams in that sense, that, you know, he's done a significant amount of work but not the largest amount of work, but his influence is enormous. His influence can be felt in so many different artists, and I'm one of them. And hats off to Travis Charest. Just a great artist, and really brilliant talent, brilliant mind. So let's see here. Alrighty. So we'll go in. Let me see. So this is the game that I'm playing whenever I'm working. I've got some value over here. I've increased it there, and now it's lightened the value over here by context. So I need weight to balance this thing out. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go in and put some darks over here. And so here you go. This is a part of the process. It's kind of a little bit like cooking. You go and you put a little salt over here, and you say, oh, it's a little too salty now. I got to put something over here and put in another ingredient. And so that's a huge part of what I'm doing. So I take this, and I'm going to start washing this in. And it's going to give me some ideas of, everything I do when I add paint into something, it's going to reveal other things. So I've got this similarity of value here where I've got a highlight and then I've got another light area. So it's making me realize I need to wash that back just a little bit to make that snake pattern and that snake figure kind of come out a little bit more. So there we go. And now I'm going to take a little bit more of the black paint right here, a little bit more of the blue, and get that happening here. So here we go. There we go. And it's amazing to me, when I'm working this way, a lot of the things that I've discussed with people about painting that are very, when you talk about them, it's very strange because it's one thing to talk about them, it's another thing to do them. And so it's kind of it's not like people explain something to me about painting and I go, oh, okay, that makes sense. I don't. It's more, I paint and then I remember something someone was saying and I go, oh, that must be what they're talking about. And I think that's the thing about painting that's really important, and the thing about art in general is it is a physical activity. It's not an intellectual one. And you got to kind of learn from doing it. You can't really learn from having someone talk your ear off about it. It just doesn't work that way. It's like listening to somebody talk your ear off about sports, or in my case boxing, which I love. And it doesn't mean that you're an expert in boxing. It doesn't mean you can do anything in that ring. And for me, as I'm working here, my big, the biggest part of the experience for me and the thing I enjoy the most is how much you just learn from doing it. I've had this relationship with art for as long as I can remember, since I was a kid, since I was like 4 or 5, for heaven's sake. I've been just drawing with this intense sort of focus on it. And, it's a huge thing to kind of, a very rewarding experience to watch what those decades, now that I've been on the planet for 45 years, or at least completed 45 years on the planet there. It's amazing to kind of see where this weird thing I started doing when I was, as soon as I could hold a pencil, where it's gone and where it's taken me. There we go. So you can start to see how by putting in those values, we start to bring out the snake a little bit more, and we start to create the dynamic that this piece needs to have. I'm leaving a lot of worms up there, leaving some contrast. I don't want to get everything too dark here, although it is going to be lighter in the foreground. So the way I'm setting this up is it's going to be light, dark in the middle, and then lighter towards the bottom. No pun intended. And so for me, mixing up this paint, that's what the process is. just it's one of value. I mean, oftentimes we get, focused on the color aspect of it. I had a teacher when I was in school who really emphasized the color aspect of things and said, you should do this don't just paint with value and then layer, color over it. And that's actually some really interesting advice. I think it's very canned advice, though. It's not useful in terms of understanding things to start out with. The idea is this is how important color is. Don't let it be a part of value. But color is value. It is informed by value. And for me, the way that I paint, even though I'm using color theory, I'm always emphasizing value. And I think that's one bit of advice that is it's funny. The teacher even had a famous illustrator come visit us, and he contradicted that, and it was really funny to watch the expression. It's a little bit like this Werner Herzog NOSFERO discussion I heard that I think was at USC. I'm not positive. And it was really funny because the person who was running the talk kept trying to push Werner Herzog to validate her ideology, and Werner Herzog just kept not doing it, not to be spiteful or not to be obnoxious, but because it's like, no, you're putting words into my mouth, and I'm a great filmmaker, and who the heck are you, so to speak. I mean, he didn't say that, but that was what I was getting from it. And it was amazing how someone would think when their role is the host and they're interviewing this person who's accomplished so much, that they would think to interrupt them to kind of say, no, you don't understand. Like, this is what I think. And it's like, we're not here for you. It's kind of the audacity. And it's frankly, it's something that it doesn't surprise me that is something I would see in the particular age demographic that the person is a member of, which is older than me, because they're a part of a generation that raised a younger generation who are now adults to think, in many instances culturally, to think that everything is about them, which is weird. Because the knowledge that anybody has when they're, 18, 19, or 20 doesn't come close to the knowledge that you would hope they're going to have when they're older. And so, I remember listening to Katharine Hepburn on the Dick Cavett show, not live. I wasn't, sentient enough to understand that at that point. But I remember listening to these interviews because you can find them on YouTube. And she was talking about how if you spend your youth talking, you can't be listening. And you don't have a lot to say, and you should, spend some time making sure you listen. And that's what I did when I was younger. And that is studying and having a realistic assessment of my abilities, which is the same as now as it was then, which is it can always improve. But, and I need to be doing better at this and work on this. And it's just the way it is. I mean, that's the way driven people are. I'm aware of what I have accomplished as an artist, but I'm also driven by a passion for learning. It's a very weird thing to see somebody argue with someone who has more experience than them and more accomplishment. It shows there's this quote in Atlas Shrugged that I really like, that is a great book by Ayn Rand, and again, it's on the do not read books list, which always makes me laugh. But she had this bit where she says that the sign of the second-rater, the person who's a second-rate mind, second-rate talent, is that they need to live in a world where everyone is their acknowledged inferior mind, that they're the smartest person in the room. And that is the greatest sign that someone is a second-rate talent. Because a first-rate talent dreams of being in a room where there are people who know more than them and are smarter because they want to learn. They're driven by this kind of passion for learning. And it says what the second-rater will never understand, that the first-rater, about the first-rater, is that they would give anything to see a glimpse of genius in anybody around them, and how when you're a really, really smart person, how lonely it can be. And I don't know, I've never really thought much about, oh, how am I smart? Am I this? It just doesn't occur to me. But as I've gotten older and as I've, really honed and refined my work, I've realized that at the very least, I understand about myself that I am not inspired by, and it's certainly not, I don't have the second rater's dream of, I don't strive to be the dumbest person in the room. That's for sure. But I certainly I don't aspire to be in a room where I'm the smartest person. I need to be in a room where everybody is intelligent and driven and passionate and dedicated to the work. It just doesn't do anything for me to be around people who are just biding their time and needing constant validation that their limited view of the world needs to be validated constantly. And that's what was so honestly appalling about that Werner Herzog Nosferatu talk when he was talking about his work. I mean, this person was just trying to get him, basically what she saw him as was a expert to validate her opinion. So she kept asking him leading questions and he kept dodging them because it wasn't his first rodeo. He was like, now, she's like, well, in the 70s, obviously, there was, feminism was a powerful force. And in your movie, you did this. And he's kind of like, yeah, like that character was important to me, but it wasn't in a feminist sense. And, you just kind of go, so you want to talk about feminism. So you're trying to do and for those of you guys who have not had the unfortunate opportunity to learn art history as it is currently being taught right now, which is heavily politicized and driven largely by certain ideologies that I'll get into on another stream if I feel the need to. But I have it in the textbook. So I actually have a textbook I can show to explain all this stuff to you. Is that it's like you start with an ideological viewpoint and then you try to rewrite history to suit that viewpoint. And it's a very disingenuous and twisted way both to teach, well, both to go about your life, but also more importantly, it's to me despicable to teach in such a fashion, to kind of take some political ideology and try to frame everything in a way that will validate it. You're not teaching at that point, you're indoctrinating. And that's what, unfortunately, a lot of people are in the business of doing right now. And you see it really clearly with this person who's interviewing Werner Herzog. You've got this great mind in front of you, and all you can think about is how they can best mirror you. And I would say that particular disease is really, really damning and, antithetical to learning when it's encouraged in students, which is to say, your job is to help your teachers understand how they're supposed to teach. It's like, what do you know at that point? I didn't know hardly anything. And I had some teachers when I was in school who, were much like that teacher. They could probably stand to go outside for a few minutes and see a couple of things, but we were there to kind of learn from them, and that was a part of the social fabric. And when you see this kind of deconstructionist view of art, where it's a bunch of people who are immodest but have a lot to be modest about, and who are it's not that they know a lot, it's that they have a position and they want to. It's funny because they usually are people who believe in that whole ideology that people aren't where they are based on skill, they're where they are based on they've done something to attain a title. And it's funny, anyone who says that, to me, it always makes me wonder and more suspect that they actually haven't earned where they are. Because when you have earned where you are, by skill, by work ethic and competency, you can just see it. I mean, I don't have to argue with somebody I know how to paint or that I know what I'm talking about, you know, and I'm certainly not going to. I'm not interested in it. And, you know, it's a very compelling thing to watch, you know, to watch people who are so desperately clinging. It's almost like they're desperate for everybody to know how smart they are instead of just being smart and learning. You know, it's not that. It's a difficult thing to become a competent artist, but if it's your job to be a competent artist and to teach the next generation, it's worth the time, and certainly if you're being paid for it. And you should be able to get outside of any institution of learning and flex and show your artwork and have people react to it who know nothing about any particular ideology. That's it. That's all it comes down to. And I've been doing that for, you know, years in terms of just my skill set, you know, and I've worked really hard for it. I don't see it as, you know, anything. There's so many amazing artists out there. I can't overstate that. So many people that I'm inspired by, and that's what keeps me going. It's very tough to be in a situation where you are around people without skill and who are hell-bent on telling people how skill works. It's really strange. So I'm going to do something I haven't done on stream, I think, before. And that is, which is weird, I'm going to get out some more white paint. So I've reached a point to where I need more contrast in this painting. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to get out my tube of white paint. And this is what it looks like, Winsor Newton white gouache. And I'm going to take this paint, I'm going to put a little bit of it down, and go in and make a much whiter, brighter yellow. And sometimes I use white in my painting all the time. I've got old, you know, little bits of white that reactivate when water hits them, because much like dry watercolor pigments, when you hit them with water, you can make paint. Gouache does the same thing when it dries. You can, you know, if you have it on a plastic palette, you hit it with some water and you've got fresh paint. But sometimes you need something that you need a little bit more white, and you need to really make something that is intense, and I'll show you what I mean. Right now, when you're looking at this piece, you can see a couple of light areas. That area looks pretty light. I want to show you what happens when you introduce actual light white into something. Look at that. I'm going to go right over that bat that's hanging, or that giant bat creature, I should say, that's hanging in the background, because I can always go in and make it darker if I want to, but I want to show that it's sitting back in space. And this is a really, you know, good way to do that. This is a very strong way to do it. Now, right now, I've got a lot of white in there, and white's a very cool color. I mean, this is a warm white, but it still cools things down a bit. And so what I'm going to show you right now is what happens, even though it's going to be a darker color, right? Because what's darker than you know, white? Pretty much everything is darker than white. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to intensify the hue of this. So I'm not going to make it lighter, I'm going to make it brighter. And I'm going to show you what happens. So by going in there with a brighter color, I don't know if you guys can see that. We'll just bring it right up to the edge. Even though it's darker as a pigment, it's going to really intensify and react off of that ground. And you can start to see how that will really bring out that warmth right there. And that's the thing about this that I love. That's the thing about making artwork that I really love and I really enjoy. There we go. So we've got this painting coming together, and it's probably got just a little bit more work left on it. I can't show you the bottom half where I've been doing some work because unfortunately that means showing the bottom half of her, which YouTube, I mean, they probably won't mind, but I've seen artists like Cesar Santos and other artists who do figurative work kind of have to work around it. So that is where we are. But this is going to be a page that could just as easily be a poster, and I'm really excited about this book. If you haven't yet, there's a link in the description to the early email sign-up for my Indiegogo campaign that's launching on October 1st. And on October 1st, when this campaign launches, I'm going to be locking out that email sign-up. And anyone who signs up for the email list and backs the book is going to get a free 4x6 ink head sketch done by me that will come with their book, will come with their order. So if you are the kind of person who would love to get that free ink head sketch, a free piece of original artwork, make sure you do not sleep on that email list, all right? Make sure that you sign up for this project because it's going to be a beautiful book worth having. I mean, look at the care that we're putting into this, okay? I mean, it is going to be worth having. And I have done 2 previous Indiegogo campaigns for art books of mine, some that have some sequential art stuff in them, and I guess that's what I'm going to do to close this out right here, or to wrap up, I should say. I may have a few more things to show. So here's the painting, and then here is a look, and I'm going to turn off my ring light here just so it doesn't reflect. Here is a look at my 2 art books. Glossy stock, square bound, beautiful. These have been well loved a little bit by me because I use them for reference. But this is the stuff that I'm doing with my work. These are the 2 art books. So this is my first one. Both of these are going to be available as perks when you buy this book, when you back this book. So this is what the interiors look like. So imagine sequential artwork done in this style, and you've got an idea of what this book is going to look like when it's done. And then here is a look at the second art book, which will give you even more of a sense of what the work is going to look like in this book. Let me see if I can get that a little bit more light on that. Here we go. Here's a look at some sequential art pages that I did in here. There she is. So yeah, this book is going to be a thing of artistic beauty, quirkiness, and fun. And I am really grateful for everybody who's signed up to that email list. Here's some more. Look at the kind of detail that's going to be in this book. And it's going to be worth seeing. So do me a favor, click that link, sign up for that email list, and we'll let you know as soon as that book launches, and you will get your original head sketch. This is going to be one of the pieces in the book, and just for a refresher for anyone who hasn't seen it yet or seen these or been on the stream, these are some of the pages that are going to be in this book. This is a look at what you're going to be getting when you back this book. I mean, this is going to be quality page after quality page, immersive, rich backgrounds, beautiful character designs, and beautiful artwork. And could not be more happy with how the work is coming at the moment. So everybody do me a favor, take care, have a great rest of the day. If I have a birthday wish for the day, and it's this, everybody have a great day out there, great day at work. Take care of yourselves, and thank you again for your support. know that I am grateful for your support. All right, everybody? Take care. Have a great rest of the day. And I will see you soon on another live stream. Okay? Peace.
King Kong ain't got nothing on me!